and I'm going to take with me the memory of one of the greatest motorcycling enthusiasts of all time. And I am convinced that he would have loved the Dakar Rally. Good morning, chaps. Today I'm going to hit the Trans-Euro Trail of Cornwall, and I'm going to take with me the memory of one of the greatest motorcycling enthusiasts of all time. The year I was born, in 1962, there was a massive epic film made about this character, easily in the top 10 best films ever made. It was called Lawrence of Arabia, about a character called T.E. Lawrence. Yeah, so when I was young, I remember watching the film and I was just like in awe of this person. And I had a few questions in my head. Why did this guy love the desert? So when me and Helen went to Morocco, I had a chance to have a taste of what it was like. So we'll get to that at a later stage in the video. You know, when you're young, you don't understand diddly squat. But I came away with the impression for the first time I watched the film that he fought for the Arabs against the British. I don't know why, but that's what I thought, and it was strange because he was a massive hero. So why? Anyway, as a youngster I got that totally wrong. Anyway, just before we went to Morocco, we watched it again, and this time it was like a rejuvenated version in 4K, so the quality was really good. At the beginning of the film, you see T.E. Lawrence having a fatal motorbike accident, and as we'll discover, it was that crash that indirectly why we all wear crash helmets now. So the film starts off with him dying, and then it goes back to the days of when he was in the military during the First World War, which is what made him so famous. So apparently he was travelling, the police say, about 100 miles an hour through lanes like this in Dorset on this bike, his 7th Brough Superior, which he named George VII, is worth over £1 million. So it's one of the most expensive motorcycles in the world, probably the most romantic motorcycle in the world, as some people have said. Apparently he swerved to avoid a couple of children on push bikes, and he hit a dip in the road, went over the handlebars, and because he wasn't wearing a crash helmet, yeah, he had fatal head injuries. But there was a neurosurgeon called, I think he was Australian, he was called Hugh Cairns, this chap here, and he tried for 6 days to save T.E. Lawrence's life. Anyway, after his death, done a huge amount of research. But back in those days, the motorcycling racers used to wear helmets, but the civilians and motorcyclists in the army and navy, etc., the dispatch riders, they didn't wear any headgear. But anyway, he'd done research over many years, lots of studies, and he concluded that the vast majority of deaths were caused by head injuries, and that safety headgear would dramatically reduce the amount of deaths. But in 1973, the government pushed through a bill which made it mandatory to wear helmets. Now this is where I don't agree with that, as Enoch Powell didn't agree with it, and he tried to fight against it because he was a libertarian. And like me, well, I'm partly libertarian because I believe in personal freedom, and I also believe in personal responsibility. So actually forcing you to wear a helmet, I'm not for. Now if I had the chance and I had the freedom to wear a helmet or not, then there would be times I would wear a helmet, and there would be times I wouldn't wear a helmet where I see fit, because I would get a damn sight more pleasure out of riding a bike without a helmet. Personally, I think it's the government's job to advise, give us all the available information and science when it regards anything, and then we choose as individuals whether we want to be protected or not. When I go out on a push bike, I've never wore a helmet. I just want that feeling of freedom in the air, just going through, sorry, the wind going through my hair and all that, you know. Like I said, most things is about freedom for me. I'm feeling free. So yeah, I was hoping when me and Helen went to Morocco that it wasn't mandatory to wear a helmet, so I could choose. I mean, loads of people go around without helmet, but it is, you know, on their mopeds in the mountains, etc., or you can see it in the cities sometimes. But they seem to get away with it. But yeah, sure, mopeds ain't quite as dangerous as a more powerful motorbike. But unfortunately it was mandatory. We didn't want to get in trouble, so yeah, I look forward to going to a country where it's not mandatory sometime. I mean, when I first put this helmet on, about what, 3 years ago, I felt so claustrophobic, and I remember doing one of my first motor vlogs back in the day, and unfortunately I didn't record a bit when I was talking about how I was feeling, the feeling of feeling free on a motorbike. But I remember saying back then I hated it spoiled it, wearing a helmet. It really, and I still feel that today. Like wearing a helmet now, it just takes away some of the freedom. So yeah, each individual has to weigh up the risks, you know. That's my opinion. Sometimes me and Helen go climbing, and in the climbing world it's highly recommended to wear a helmet. Not just in case you fall and bang your head on the rocks, but there's always a chance of loose rocks falling from above and knocking you out. But the vast majority of climbers that I've ever witnessed, especially the better ones, don't wear a helmet. They just love that freedom, and they're willing to take that bit of risk. Now surely that should be up to the individual. So I would like to work out by the end of this video, would Colonel Lawrence have enjoyed green laning? And would, if the Dakar Rally was around in the 20s and 30s, would he have been able to say no? Because he was asked why he didn't do racing on the track, because he would have been good enough. But he said because he just absolutely adored speed on his motorbikes. But the reason he didn't want to race is because he was so famous, and he hated the fame, by the way, we'll get into that later, but he was so famous that he knew he would be expected to win, and I don't think he wanted that pressure. So from 1922, so this is a few years after the First World War, and I noticed at the very end of the film, he seemed like he was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. As he was being taken back in a Land Rover, and this dispatch rider on a motorcycle rode by, and his eyes lit up. So was that the beginning of him riding a motorcycle? Anyway, in 1922 he bought the first of 7 of his Brough Superior SS 100s. Yeah, they were 1000cc. They were the Rolls Royce of motorcycles in those days. They were handmade. Apparently they were put together, running, and they were taken apart again, painted, chromed, then put back together. And even the owner, George Brough, apparently rode every motorcycle made, maybe to a speed of 100 miles an hour, because that was the benchmark. Let's get through this little river first. Yeah, so these Brough Superiors, they were 1000cc. They were the first production bike to go over 100 miles an hour. And yeah, he had 7 of them. He was infatuated with these motorbikes, and he called them Boanerges. Yeah, Boanerges, and that's an Aramaic term for sons of thunder. Now, they must have made a beautiful thunderous sound. No, and not only that, Lawrence had a bit of a thunderous life also, but he named each motorbike after the owner, George Brough. So his first bike was George I, all the way up to when he died on George VII. And there was a George VIII which was in production before he died. The modern day Brough's manufacturing company has been moved to France, right next to an aeronautical manufacturing aerospace thing. And yeah, they use incredible technologies, and they even use metals like titanium on their motorbikes, and these are some of the modern day motorbikes. Some pictures. Yeah, they look absolutely fabulous. But like always, in the old days, these motorbikes were the price of a house, and you know, you're looking at £50,000 probably minimum for a modern day one. So that'd take me a lifetime to buy one of those. And what's nice, I think their latest edition, well, which was meant to have come out during COVID, but because of COVID it didn't happen at one of the shows, and but I think they might have brought it out in 2021. And whoa, this is, I gotta sit back down. Fucking hell. Sorry about the view, no, there isn't one. Yeah, I think they've done a limited edition, and it's been called the Lawrence in memory of T.E. Lawrence, and apparently they tried to keep the design as close to the original as possible. It doesn't look much like it to me, but anyway, it still looks like a fabulous bike. Well, we have another low one now, so no good for the camera, is it? You know, that's the trouble with this time of year, it can get rather overgrown unless the farmer of these areas cut it down for his own purposes. So Lawrence died in 1935 at the age of 46. But why was this man so famous? Okay, come to a bit where I was concerned about, because I think I've only been down it once, and that was with a group of guys when I first started off. They were about 7 trail riders, and yeah, I was very inexperienced, and getting down here was a nightmare. I think at the very bottom is extremely muddy, even in potentially dry conditions. It's very gnarly, and then there's a steep gnarly exit. So and the last time I thought about doing this, I actually walked down here and thought, nah, sod it, I'm not doing this. But anyway, I should be more capable now than I was back then. But it's certainly not a place where you want to get stuck, that's for sure. So I'm not going to talk about Lawrence at the moment, because I need to concentrate. Yeah, when I came down over those, I went out with those guys, I actually bent my handlebars about 3 times. Keep moving. Oh, f me. Phew. Keep moving, momentum. Get over these rock steps. Yeah, bent my handlebars 3 times, and the 3rd time I bent them back. That's because of obviously falling on that day. I think it was 6 times I fell. First time I went out green laning, and yeah, bent them 3 times. And then on the 3rd time of bending them back, I was massively concerned that they would snap. So that's good. I faced one of my fears actually, because of that experience I had, and I had terrible problems getting up here. But mind you, I'm in nice dry conditions at the moment, so that's cool. Oh no, this is where all the mud is. But it's quite dry at the moment. That's nice. It's funny how your memory deceives you sometimes. Could have been a combination of memories. I was expecting a really gnarly, really narrow grassy section, which I think on that particular day I fell a few times. But anyway, that might come later. Oh, foot down, bugger. Didn't go fast enough. Yeah, so who was this guy? Oh, way! Oh, I'm gonna have to find a lane where I don't have to concentrate. In the film, we have Peter O'Toole famously portraying Lawrence of Arabia, and he was easily over 6 foot, but the real Lawrence was only 5'5". So yeah, on his motorbikes he had to have lots of alterations. He might have been a diminutive man, but he made up for it in many other ways. So anyway, he loved history, and he was particularly fascinated with the Crusades and stuff like that in the medieval times, and so he had a bit of a fascination with castles. So when he was at college studying for his history, he cycled at one time in the beginning of his studies. He cycled the length of France to the Mediterranean. It's like 2,200 miles studying French castles, and he'd done that alone. Alright, and that was part of his thesis. And then towards the end of the studies, he went to Syria because he was interested in the Crusader castles over there, and he walked over 1,000 miles studying castles. So he was a man who loved to push himself physically and mentally, I guess. He was a fantastic writer as well. So then he got a job. He got into actually archaeology. So he became an archaeologist, obviously. Yeah, and he went on this dig in Gilgamesh. He was actually acting as a bit of a spy as well. It was a bit of a cover-up because they wanted to keep an eye on this German railway that was being built over there. So that was useful for the British. Anyway, the World War I broke out, and in the Middle East and those sort of areas, the Ottoman Empire was absolutely in total control, and they obviously joined Germany, etc. in the World War. Anyway, he was a bit upset because a couple of his brothers had died in the First World War, so maybe that was a reason that pushed him to the extremes, as you'll see in the film if you ever watch it. It's, like I said, it's 4 hours long, so maybe he split it up into 2 goes. And but yeah, he was brought into the British intelligence service, and eventually, you know, he was brought in there initially because he had a good knowledge of Arab people, because he wasn't the type of person to go to a country and tell them how to live. He went to a country to find out how they lived, and that's what the Arabs appreciated about him. He wasn't a Westerner who was going to tell him what they're doing wrong. Yeah, he ended up in the intelligence corps, and the British and the French together were fighting in that area, and they wanted like help from the Arabs to help defeat. So it would have been in the interests of the Arabs to get rid of the Ottoman Empire. So the British and the French promised the Arab people that they would have their own homeland, and their preferred homeland was Syria. Lawrence seemed to be the perfect guy because he understood the people, but he wasn't a real military man. He never shot anyone in his life. He had a bit of a disrespect for authority, which is cool, and yeah, he was very different. He managed to unite warring tribes, Arab tribes, to unite to have a common goal and a common enemy, which again, like I say, was the Ottoman Empire. And it was the first time guerrilla tactics were used, so yeah, so he set out pretty much off his own back. I mean, half the stuff he'd done, the British didn't know he was doing until he'd done it. So he was certainly a maverick. I mean, having a maverick in your ranks is no good if you want to have complete control, but the things they get done is better than any other type of person. I think he blew up about 79 bridges, and to try and slow up the progress of the Ottoman Empire, and he learned how to use explosives in a very clever way. I don't know if he started just blowing the bridges up, but then he realised it didn't take the Ottoman Empire long to actually rebuild them. So he realised that by damaging them severely was better, and it took longer for the repairs. He had some pretty amazing battles, some incredible ones, and some incredible feats of endurance and suffering. And nobody knew about this because everything he'd done was top secret. It was only after the war that this American journalist, who was following him around as much as he could, done some huge stories on Lawrence of Arabia, and he instantly become, well, probably the most famous name, especially in Britain, the most famous name of the Second World War. And after the film, well, his fame only increased in the 60s. So why did he turn to motorcycling and not before? I don't know. He apparently always loved speed. When he was in Cargamesh, there's plenty of boats over there, and he ordered an outboard motor from UK and had it transported over so we could have a bit of speed on the boats. But yeah, who knows? But like I said, he started in 1922, and once he got into it, he was massively hooked. Yeah, so with the help of Lawrence and his Arab friends, they helped defeat the Ottoman Empire. But like I said, there was the promise from the British and French to the Arabs that they would have their own homeland. But they had different ideas. They signed a pact, forget what they call it, and it never happened. During the war, towards the end, he was released from duty, but for a number of years afterwards he tried to you know, argued diplomatically for the rights of Arabs to have their homeland, with no success, unfortunately. But because of the PTSD, probably, and the failure of, he probably knew about this agreement between the French and British, but he still had a job to do, and he was still hoping to be able to change people's minds. But like the powerful nations do, they want to see what they can grab for themselves. So when the Ottoman Empire dismantled, the British picked what they wanted, the French picked what they wanted. Obviously a lot of oil was involved, greed took over, geopolitics. How would the world look now if the Arabs had their homeland? But in the 10 years after the war, he suffered from depression, bouts of depression, and motorbiking was one of his ways of being free from all that. And the faster he went, the freer he became. Going back to the helmet situation, if he was still alive today, how would he feel? Would he wear a helmet? I don't think so. If he had a choice, I don't think he would. He didn't like fame. He became extremely famous because of what he achieved in the First World War. But he hated the fame. He was a colonel by then in the British Army. So he joined the RAF as an aircraftman, the lowest, like a private. And he was happier that way, and he could concentrate on engineering. He was quite interested in engineering. And he got involved with aeroplanes. I think he might have had some input into the Spitfire. And then he got found out, because he changed his name, people found out who he was. So then he joined the tank regiment. At one stage he was working on producing fast motorboats for the armed forces. But like a lot of people who join the armed forces, it becomes their family, and he was a bit lost when he left. Anyway, he is certainly a guy in the past that I would have loved to have met. So anyway, I'm going to do a bit more green laning, concentrate on that, and then we'll look at potentially why he loved the desert, and would the Dakar Rally have suited him. Might get some views here. By the looks of it, views of bloody wind turbines. Helmand Tour. Oh, nice. Don't you love blossom on trees? It's awesome. Well, I've just gone over its stick. It's got mangled up. It's pulled the chain off. How about that, eh? First time that's ever happened to me. Bugger. I hope the link ain't damaged. We'll see. Look at this. Oh dear me. Well, there's a lot of squirrels around here. Oh my, it's very look at the stones and logs here. Well, it's more like a bloody footpath now. Well, just to add to the tale, a little conspiracy. Was the death of Lawrence an accident, which the official line was, or was it an assassination? Well, there's a few things that point towards the latter. One is the special branch was on the spot almost immediately, and there was an army, I don't know what rank he was, maybe private or whatever. There was an army guy who actually witnessed the accident, and he said just before he lost control there was a black vehicle past him. I think this guy ended up committing suicide because he wasn't being taken seriously and stuck to his story throughout his life. But some people believe that the two children were told to keep to a certain narrative. The two children, as they were growing up, never wanted to speak about the situation. I think, because I'm bloody talking, I've gone the wrong way. But anyway, and I got my indicators on. But anyway, there is suspicion, and he would have created some enemies in not so. Oh, look at that! A rat and a what is it? I don't know. Yeah, he's going to come down and get his meat. Oh no! What did he catch? Oh, it's a squirrel. A buzzard up there caught a squirrel. He's going to go back for his food in a minute. Yeah, they never wanted to talk about it, so there's enough sort of bit of suspicion to why people wonder. And like I said, he had enemies in the Secret Service because, like I say, he was in Maverick. He done what he thought was best a lot of times. Maybe he knew too much. There's a suspicion that the intelligence services wanted him to infiltrate the Nazi and get close to Hitler. And he did have a friend who did have sympathies for Hitler and part of the Nazi group, so that was a way in that he could have done. So who knows what goes on in that world? Anyone is expendable, especially if you don't toe the line. I had just had a thought. If I was green laning with Mr. Lawrence, he'd be wanting to stop all the churches and uncover some mysteries. God, sod that. Nice little spot. Gateway with a view of, don't know, I think I might be in the Truro area. Anyway, yeah, let's have a nice cup of coffee. I really detest speed limits because it restricts your freedom, but that's on one occasion where I understand and accept we need speed limits. It's about the safety of others, let alone for yourself. I'm not worried about myself. I would prefer to choose my own speed, but if I'm allowed to go as fast as I want, then I could cause an accident and with other people involved. So that I get and accept. Doesn't mean I have to like them. So Lawrence really pushed his motorcycle. This is before speed limits, obviously back in those days. And he used to time himself when he had to go to work in London. And so he used to commute from a place in Dorset, his home. There were speed limits back then, and he couldn't do the speeds that he would like, would he have been interested in green laning? Because there you have a bit more freedom, there's a lot more technicality involved, so you push yourselves in other ways other than speed. Same with the Dakar Rally and stuff like that. It's not just about speed, it's about technicality. So at least there you can go as fast as you want. And me and Helen were fortunate in Morocco to experience the old Dakar Rally and let rip when we felt confident. And because of his love of the desert, I'm sure he would have absolutely loved it. And the whole romance and huge adventure of doing a Dakar Rally would have massively impressed him, I'm sure. Yeah, I think this is it for me today, chaps. So we will continue what I think of Lawrence of Arabia. Oh. Using footage of the Morocco trip. Come on, you dipstick. That's how to park a Himalayan without a side stand. Yeah! What we doing on Himalayan? Just going above 70. I don't like what I'm seeing there, so I'm going to slow down. Oh, it's alright. Open up a bit more. Yee bloody ha! Way! Bumpy, bumpy! Yoo! Fucking flying! It is so damn peaceful here. Really, really peaceful. And I'm starting to understand why T.E. Lawrence loved the desert. And I am convinced that he would have loved the Dakar Rally. Oh, look at that! Yeehaw! Thanks very much for watching. See you next time. Tatty bye.